and the omnibus. So I was forced into the Archers when I was a child. And look, it's come back to bite me later on. I'm awash with this stuff.
The Archers is the world's longest-running radio show, with more than 15,000 episodes broadcast. Despite being a rural flavour show, The Archers is recorded in the heart of...
Welcome to The Debate. Today we are dissecting the events of Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026 in Ambridge. It was a day that should have been defined by clockwork precision, a meticulously planned marriage proposal, and the organized rollout of a 75th birthday celebration. Instead, it was defined by a dog's appetite, a veterinary waiting room, and a frantic scramble to bottle milk.
It is great to be here, and honestly, I think Tuesday was a masterpiece. I mean, it was a masterclass in how life actually works versus how we think it should work. You have these huge, high-stakes moments. Stella asking Pip to marry her, Tony Archer marking 3/4 of a century, and the universe just, decided to throw the script in the shredder. Or, well, I suppose in this case, the universe decided to feed the script to a greyhound.
It's this tension between the plan and the reality. Does the value of a milestone come from the sanctity of the ritual, the perfect execution that honors the moment? Or does its value come from the adaptability required when the whole thing just collapses?
I think you know where I stand. I believe the collapse is the point.
And I am the advocate. I'll be arguing that structure, foresight, and risk mitigation are really the highest forms of care. What we saw with the dog incident and the staffing crisis at the dairy wasn't some charming rom-com. It was a failure of operational security that caused, I think, unnecessary trauma.
And I am the dissenter. And I take the view that what you call trauma, I call narrative. The disruptions we saw, the vet for emergency, the rejection of consumerist birthday gifts, the cheese room hustle, they stripped away the performance. They revealed a deeper, an almost anti-fragile authenticity. The ruined plan is usually the only one worth remembering.
All right, let's get into our position statements. I want to start by defending the concept of the special occasion. Significant life events like a proposal, they require a container. They need to be set apart from the mundane slog of daily life. And respect is demonstrated through preparation. I mean, look at Stella. Her instinct was undeniable. She wanted to create a sanctuary. She prepared a specific lunch. She opened the wine. She made a homemade raspberry cheesecake with a complex recipe for a coulis. She was trying to build a moment of perfect suspended animation.
But she failed to secure the perimeter.
That is exactly my point. The failure of vigilance ruined the sanctity of the intent. By leaving a cheesecake, which, let's not forget, contained a concealed engagement ring, accessible to Cleo, Stella took a moment of high romance and turned it into a medical emergency. Instead of a heartfelt exchange of vows over wine, she was left on edge, terrified she had poisoned the family pet. The setting shifted from a dining table to a clinical vet's office under the glare of fluorescent lights. That isn't authentic, it's just stressful. It represents the planning fallacy, this optimism bias that assumes nothing will go wrong, leaving us totally unprepared when it inevitably does.
I see why you frame it that way, but I think you're missing the beauty of the breakdown. The perfect plan is so often a barrier to genuine connection because it forces everyone to act out a script. It's performance art, it's not life. Stella's proposal was a script. When Cleo ate the cheesecake, she didn't just eat a ring, she ate the pretense. The chaos that Stella feared actually facilitated a moment of absolute clarity for Pip. It forced them out of the special occasion bubble and back into their real dynamic.
A dynamic involving dog vomit?
A dynamic involving resilience. And it's the same with Tony's birthday. His strategy is a brilliant subversion of norms. He is rejecting the passive accumulation of goods, the bits and pieces people buy out of obligation, in favor of distributing seeds to the village. He is creating a legacy of growth. And then at the dairy, Susan finding the rhythm in the chaos, well, that just shows that humans are built to adapt, not just to follow a schedule.
I think you are romanticizing stress, but let's dive into the core debate. I want to focus specifically on the validity of this imperfect proposal. We have to look at the objective failure of the mechanism. Stella hid a ring in a raspberry cheesecake. Now, strictly from a safety perspective, putting a foreign, non-edible object in soft food is it's a high-risk strategy.
It's a classic trope, though, you have to admit.
It's a dangerous trope. The result was Cleo ingesting the ring, necessitating an immediate evacuation to the vet. The moment was objectively ruined. Stella admitted to Susan that in hindsight it was just stupidity. She was so demoralized that she wanted to abandon the plan entirely. She wanted to go home, get into a hot bath, and forget the whole thing. She explicitly said she couldn't even be bothered with the shepherd's pie she planned for dinner. That indicates emotional exhaustion. The chaos didn't energize her, it drained her. She felt she had failed. A proposal should be a peak experience, not a disaster recovery operation.
Okay, but you are focusing entirely on Stella's internal monologue of regret, which is natural in the heat of the moment. But look at the external result. The vet, Paul, actually saved the narrative. When he told Stella to take a picture of that scan, he gave them a new artifact. The X-ray became the proof of intent. It provided this tangible, albeit bizarre, evidence of the ring's existence. But the most important data point here isn't the ring, it's Pip's reaction.
Pip was confused. She thought she was getting a cruise.
That is the best part. Pip thought the suspicious behavior, the secretiveness, the stress was all about a Northern Lights cruise. She dismissed it as Stella getting carried away, and that tells us something important about the plan. Pip was expecting a grand, polished gesture, and she was already, rolling her eyes at it a little bit. But when she realized it was a proposal, even with the ring currently sitting inside the dog's stomach, she accepted immediately. She said, "Of course I will." She accepted the commitment without the symbol in her hand. That proves the relationship is substantial enough to survive the absence of the prop.
But you cannot ignore the absurdity of the logistics. Pip literally agreed to wait for the ring to be adequately sterilized. I mean, we are talking about retrieving a symbol of eternal love from biological waste. It degrades the dignity of the symbol. A ring is supposed to be pristine, not processed.
I completely disagree. I think it grounds the symbol in their reality. We are talking about farmers. These are people who deal with mud and livestock, birth and death every single day. Pip observed that this ridiculous, chaotic proposal actually suits them. That is a profound insight. If Stella had executed a polished, flawless proposal, that Northern Lights cruise, it might have felt alien to their reality. It would have been a vacation from who they are. The X-ray proposal was authentic to who they are.
I suppose one could argue that if your life is messy, a messy proposal fits. But I would counter that milestones are opportunities to elevate oneself above the mess, not wallow in it. We plan these things to say, for one moment, let us be perfect. Stella was robbed of that.
Or maybe she was relieved of the pressure to be perfect.
I doubt she felt relieved while waiting for the X-ray results. But let's pivot to the second point, which echoes this theme of control versus community flow. The rituals of celebration, specifically Tony's birthday.
The organic birthday gift. I love this concept.
I find it incredibly socially risky.
Introducing the Archer's mug, where elegance meets everyday comfort. Crafted from premium white ceramic, designed with vibrant peekaboo colors inside, simple, modern, and stylish. Start your day the Archer's way, with warmth, familiarity, and the comfort of voices you've come to love. As the stories unfold on the Archers, let this mug become part of your daily ritual, a small reminder of life in Ambridge. Practical for every home, dishwasher and microwave safe. Available in 2 sizes, 11 ounces and 15 ounces, designed to fit your lifestyle. Enjoy your favorite drink in a mug that connects you to Britain's most beloved countryside story, The Archers. For more information and to order your very own The Archer's mug, follow the link below and make it part of your daily routine.
Susan initially described the situation as doom and gloom because Tony was refusing presents. We have to understand that rituals like parties and presents, they serve a vital social function. They are reciprocity mechanisms. They allow the community to express gratitude. When you unilaterally decide to change the social contract, you risk alienating your loved ones. You make them feel like their affection is being rejected.
See, I don't think he's rejecting affection. I think he is upgrading the operating system of the birthday. Tony is engaging in a higher form of social contract. He isn't just saying no gifts, which, yes, that would be a rejection. He is replacing a passive reception of tribute with an active, growing community project.
He is giving people chores. Here are some seeds. Go plant them in the churchyard. It's delegation disguised as celebration.
No, he is giving them agency. The plan is to give every villager a bucket of seeds, vegetables, and flowers to plant in public spaces like the green. This transforms the birthday from a single day of consumption into months of shared beauty. It creates a commons. It is a gift to the village.
It relies entirely on the village doing the work, though, and it relies on nature cooperating.
And the evidence suggests the village is on board. Look at Susan's reversal. She starts the day calling it gloomy, but once the concept is explained, that the flowers and produce will grow for everyone to enjoy, she admits it is rather lovely and very Tony. This proves that breaking the rigid rules of a birthday can yield a much higher, meaningful return. A village full of flowers is objectively more valuable to the community than Tony receiving a few more bits and pieces or a bottle of whiskey he doesn't need.
I will concede that the outcome, if the seeds actually grow, is positive. But again, it introduces an element of risk. What if they don't grow? What if the weather turns? A traditional party is a controlled environment. You buy the cake, you eat the cake, everyone goes home happy. Planting seeds is leaving your legacy to the elements. It's the same theme, relinquishing control, which brings us to our third point, professional preparedness versus adaptability in the context of the dairy.
The farm shop order.
Yes, let's look at the business side of this. They secured a big regular order. This is a massive business win. But they weren't ready. Susan explicitly says they weren't ready staffing-wise. This necessitated pulling Susan in from her other duties, Helen having to recruit frantically, and Aram being unavailable because he's stuck in the polytunnels with Tom.
But they're managing. The bottles are getting filled.
They are managing by the skin of their teeth. Susan describes it as a pickle. This reliance on scrambling, on muddling through, endangers the business's reputation. If Susan hadn't been available or if Helen couldn't cover, that order fails. Relying on family volunteerism and overworking your current staff is not a sustainable business strategy. It shows a lack of structural order. It is the definition of fragility. One domino falls and the whole delivery collapses.
I see it differently. I view this as a demonstration of anti-fragility. You mentioned Susan was pulled in, but listen to how she described the experience. She didn't say it was torture. She said, after a while you get into the rhythm of it. It's almost meditative.
She also said she's glad Helen is looking for someone else so she can stop doing it.
True. She doesn't want to do it forever, but the pressure of the new order is catalyzing growth. It is forcing Helen to recruit, potentially someone she knows from the cheese-making world. The crisis is the mother of evolution here. If they had waited until they were perfectly staffed to accept the order, they might have missed the opportunity. Businesses don't grow in a vacuum of safety, they grow by stretching. Just as the proposal survived the dog, the farm survives the order through human connection and adaptability.
Surviving shouldn't be the benchmark for success. The benchmark should be thriving with a margin of safety. When you rely on adaptability, you are essentially relying on luck and the exhaustion of your people. Stella was exhausted. Susan was working extra hours. This authenticity comes at a high human cost.
But that cost is the investment. The shared struggle creates the bond. Pip and Stella are closer now because they navigated the dog incident together. They have a war story. The dairy team is stronger because they stepped up. If everything went according to the plan, nobody would have learned anything about their own capacity.
I think there was a difference between a war story and a preventable accident. Let's look at the specifics of the resolution with the ring. The vet, Paul, said it should pass through her system no problem. They are relying on biological luck. If that ring had sharp edges, we would be discussing surgery, not a wedding.
But it didn't. And that's the reality. You can't adjudicate on what might have happened. You have to look at what did happen. And what happened was a yes. What happened was a funny story about a dog in a ring.
But doesn't it bother you that the symbol of their union is now contingent on the digestive transit time of a greyhound? It turns the sublime into the scatological.
Not at all. It removes the pretension. Marriage is messy. Life is messy. If you can't handle a ring going through a dog, you probably can't handle the next 50 years of farming, financial stress, and aging. It was a stress test, and they passed.
I would argue they didn't pass the test. They survived the crash. There is a distinction. But I want to circle back to the emotional state of Stella. We cannot gloss over her desire to just go home to a hot bath. That is the universal signal of a human being who has been defeated by chaos. She wasn't laughing in that moment.
No, she wasn't, but Pip was, smiling. Or at least, Pip was seeing the truth of it. Pip saw Stella's vulnerability. Stella wanted it to be perfect for Pip. The fact that it went wrong and Stella was so upset about it, that showed Pip how much Stella cared. The chaos revealed the depth of the affection in a way a perfect Northern Lights cruise never could. On a cruise, you're just enjoying the view. In the vet's office, you're confronting the reality of us against the world.
That is a very charitable interpretation. I think if you asked Stella, she would still trade the us against the world moment for a quiet dinner where no one had to inspect dog feces.
Perhaps, but she got the girl, and that was the objective.
Let's move to our conclusion. I think we have illuminated a fundamental divide here that goes well beyond Ambridge.
I agree. It's the divide between the architects and the improvisers. Precisely.
From my perspective, while the outcomes on Tuesday were ultimately positive, Pip said yes. Tony has a lovely idea. The dairy is fulfilling the order. The methodology was deeply flawed. The reliance on luck, specifically the ring having no sharp edges and passing naturally, is not a strategy for life. We cannot undervalue precision and caution just because a disaster was narrowly averted. Stella's desire for a hot bath and her admission of stupidity suggests that deep down, she knows order is preferable to chaos. She knows she gambled and won, but she shouldn't have had to gamble at all.
And I maintain that the beauty of Tuesday's events lies entirely in their unpredictability. A sterilized ring recovered from a dog is a better story, a more human story, than a pristine one presented on a platter. A village full of flowers is better than a pile of wrapped gifts. Life is messy. Embracing that messiness, as Pip did when she accepted the proposal without the ring, is the only way to truly live it. You can build all the walls you want, but eventually the dog is going to eat the cheesecake. You have to be ready to laugh when it happens.
I prefer to put the cheesecake on a higher shelf.
Touché.
I suppose that is where we must leave it. We agree that the result was joy, but we disagree on the path taken to get there.
Indeed. And I think the listeners can decide for themselves. Would you prefer the Northern Lights cruise proposal, perfect and polished, or the X-ray proposal, chaotic and ridiculous?
I know which one I would choose. I'll take the cruise.
And I'll take the X-ray.
Thank you for listening to the debate.
Until next time.
So, what are you doing now?
Just getting ready for the next episode. Just
And,
moving mics around.
So what do you do?
I do the spot effects on the arches. Any
Are you what we
movements
call Foley then?
and- kind of. Yep.
Okay. And these are all part of the paraphernalia of production.
Yep. That's the ball bar.
This one.
Yep. That's.
Haley so wanted to be in their own place when their baby came. It's due in 2 months. Not much chance of that now. No. I mean, it would have been a stretch for them financially, mind, but I just wish there was something practical I could do to help them, Caroline.
I think The Archers has had this immense popularity over the years, basically because it has always very accurately reflected the reality of life and living in a rural community, at whatever